Just like the first part in Yorgos Lanthimos' Kinds of Kindness, the second part also starts with a phone call. But things are different this time.
Hello?
While Raymond was on the other end of the call, standing for the father figure giving instructions, this time there's only silence on the other side.
I can't hear you.
Why is this so? Such things, besides others, get clear if we look at them from the perspective of philosopher Jacques Lacan, which is exactly what we'll do to decrypt RMF is flying and what it means to the rest of the film. In this part of the triptych, we see an interesting step taken forward in terms of editing.
But they're doing a great job out there. I heard this morning the head of the rescue mission is hopeful.
Jump cuts are taken as a regular part and parcel of the story, something that was only relevant in the scenes of discordance in the death of RMF. This choice makes us feel the chunks of time being eaten away in between. And this is in sharp contrast to Raymond asking Robert to redo an entire scene within the first story to suit his precise imaginations.
It was better when you said it standing up, so go out and come back in, do it by yourself without Vivian.
So the question is not about the imaginary anymore. It's about a world beyond it, a world of cope and trauma. Daniel, possibly hurt from bloody encounters as a cop, suffers from bouts of schizophrenia evidenced by when he finds that a suspect looks like his lost wife Liz, who forces are attempting to recover from a faraway island. By later provoking to revisit a pornographic video including Daniel's friends and Liz having intercourse, we are made to feel something off about him. Because Daniel romantically associates memories of his wife with a becoming animal movement in their past, instead of a human symbol or a conscious experience. In fact, animals seem to dominate the subconscious minds of the characters, something we will see more and more of towards the end of the story. But whenever Daniel does or says something in this story, it signals the lack he feels of the other in his life. And it is exactly this feeling of what is missing that makes the story chiefly about the register of the real.
Hello? Yes? Liz?
As per Jacques Lacan, after receiving news that Liz has been rescued and is being carried on a helicopter by none other than RMF, Daniel takes her to the hospital, where he gets a brief deja vu vision from the previous story.
Daniel.
Yes?
This can qualify as a psychotic break in Daniel, a moment of the puncturing of reality such that it enters a different world altogether. In grand ironic fashion, the returning Liz in her persona appears to be exactly the opposite of her past self.
And I made chocolate mousse for dessert. Completely forgot that Liz doesn't eat chocolate. She was so polite about it.
Oh, chocolate. That's what I want.
And this creates tension in the mind of Daniel. The editing adds a layer of postmodern subtlety when Liz is being honored at a party, and we cut from Jesse and Willem talking
Open your eyes and look clearly at what's going on around you.
to a mid-close of RMF standing alive. Is it possible that RMF is actually dead, but is being imagined by Daniel's psychotic mind? Looking at this story from the context of kindness,
Aren't you going to eat something?
the wife mutilates herself to please the other, doubling down on the premise taught by Raymond in the first story, where Robert got the attention of the other by hurting his hands. This time, the only way to satisfy the other's desires for the wife is to cut herself, and by doing so, she affirms Daniel's delusions about the real wife. This might sound a bit counterintuitive, but that is precisely the main characteristic of the real register as per Lacan, which exists precisely as a negation of the reality in favor of the unconscious.
You'll starve to death.
In extension, the story's preoccupation with gore and dead organs provokes the uncanny sense of the real. The repeated close-ups of the feet in the film give us a hint of a turn into the periphery of human anatomy, whose center previously constituted the hands. It is hence no wonder that in this part, the returning Liz is ordered to cut up her fingers and serve it to Daniel. The world negates the hands in favor of the feet. Speaking of the periphery, the sheer idea that RMF can be resurrected into a new world after being dead in the previous one means that it is possible that Liz is also just a resurrected body of Rita, which could explain why Daniel gets the deja vu feeling in the same exact hospital room from the previous story. The real in this world seems to be a mold informed by the life that is missing or seems to be misplaced into the current story. In the mirror stage, which we clearly had a look at in the previous story, According to Jacques Lacan, there is not just a formation of the imaginary order to please the other, but there is also what he calls a méconnaissance or misrecognition, where the ego starts to misunderstand or misplace objects of the other as objects of his own.
Who gave it to you? This is my phone.
What?
This is my phone.
Are you out of your mind? That's my phone.
Quiet down, sir.
Producing a delusional paranoia that seems to be prevalent in Daniel. It seems like Liz has come out of the world teased on paintings in the previous story, a realm of mythological fable that turns dogs into the owners and humans into chocolate-eating, domesticated animals. This highlights a radical turning of the tables, where the unconscious turns conscious and vice versa. Willem Dafoe as George is now an emasculated father, who is subject to slaps and derision from his own daughter. It is furthermore important to realize how misrecognition forms a part of both Liz and Daniel's behavior. Liz starts smoking out of thin air and becoming capable of pregnancy at the same time that Daniel misrecognizes his own phone, his wife's face, and other such elements. This nonsensical vacuum of the real contrasts the limiting imaginations of the previous story and enables the bizarre presence and flight of RMF, a man we saw getting killed in the previous story. In context to language, Liz eventually starts lying and distorting information merely to serve Daniel's increasingly disturbing demands until it leads to her death, and the void of it opens up the biggest delusion in the head of Daniel, the return of his real wife back home. In this way, while the death of RMF was about the breakdown and reconsolidation of the imaginary world, RMF's flying is about the corruption of infantile desires, from innocently childish to animalistic and vile, like a descent from that which is mundane and conscious to that which is unconscious and real. Perhaps when leading ourselves to the next part of this triptych, it is important to realize the implications of this final shot to the story. After the ego had a look at his virtual self in the death of RMF, the mind seems to have provoked a double image of two Emma Stones in the frame, almost like they are twins, one of which is dead and the other is alive to fulfill a prophecy. This kind of prophecy is exactly what we'll deal with in the next story, titled RMF Eats a Sandwich.